Howdy, fans! Peter Puck here to lay some facts on you about hockey, the world's fastest team sport.
Okay, if you were a hockey fan in the late 70s, that was a very familiar sight. Peter Puck was a lot of things to hockey fans in both Canada and the United States. He was an educator.
If both skates of an attacking player cross the blue line before I do, that's a no-no.
An entertainer.
Oh, wash my mouth out with slush.
And even a celebrity. But to many hockey fans, he is simply a legacy.
After all, I'm such an ice guy. Ice, that is.
But to get the unknown history of this lovable cartoon, we need to go to the man many people call Peter Puck's father, longtime hockey broadcaster, Brian McFarland.
He's been in my life for how many, 50 years now? An anniversary of Peter Puck? My goodness, that seems like a long time ago.
After playing hockey and dabbling in broadcasting at St. Lawrence College, McFarland bounced around taking various jobs in the industry in the hopes of getting his ultimate goal, a job at Hockey Night in Canada, which eventually came thanks to his wife and laundry day?
Joan said to me one day, "Do you know who moved in downstairs in our apartment building? George Retzlaff, sports director, CBC. I said, I can't believe it, the same building. And Joan did her washing, her laundry once a week with Nina Retzlaff, and she very diplomatically said, my husband's a pretty good sportscaster, and your husband should meet him.
Okay, so his foot was in the door, but the brass at CBC thought he wasn't quite ready for his baby blue jacket just yet. So, while maintaining that CBC link, he took various jobs in Montreal and Toronto, and even CBS in the States, before finally getting his shot.
So my boss said, what are we going to do with you? I said, put me up in the gondola with Bill Hewitt. That's where I want to be. Oh, okay, we can do that. I stayed for 17 years and got by, and in the middle of it all, I got a call from NBC one day, can you come down here and, without giving up your job there, do our games on Saturdays and weekends? And I said, I guess I can work that in.
But the people in charge at NBC needed a way to educate their fans. After all, this was not the Hockey Night in Canada audience. And sports fans, particularly those in the southern states, might have had trouble telling you what color the blue line was. And NBC's biggest fear was an uneducated fan might just change the channel.
In the middle of all that, in Atlanta one day, they decided to introduce a character called Peter Puck. Oh my goodness, the Leafs were playing the Flames and Leafs walloped them 8-0. It was a dull game, and NBC had brought in 60 or 80 journalists from all around the southern states. Come see a hockey game, you'll be thrilled. Well, they weren't thrilled with the hockey, but they went back and wrote about this little animated, funny hockey puck that talked hockey, and they said that was the highlight of our weekend, was seeing Peter Puck.
The animation for the new character was done by none other than Hanna-Barbera. Yes, the same Hanna-Barbera that brought you classic cartoons like the Flintstones and the Jetsons.
We're both in California, and went to the studio. I was really impressed about all the artists around doing all those single, what do you call
cells.
It? Cells.
Yeah.
And individual cells, one after the other, so they could put them all together. I mean, this just blew my mind.
They were good guys. I really liked Hanna and Barbera. They made me feel like a big shot when I went out there, and I liked that feeling once in a lifetime.
And as it seems to happen many times in history, when something becomes popular very quickly, everyone says it was their idea. Now, McFarland has never claimed credit for creating the character, but did contribute some of the help to the writers to make sure they got all the hockey parts right. An NBC executive by the name of Donald Carswell has been widely credited as being the man who came up with the idea for Peter Puck. Or did he?
Let's take Donald Carswell. Who is he? I've never even heard of him. I mean, I've seen him on Google taking credit for Peter Puck. I never met Donald Carswell. I wouldn't know him if I was hit by a truck and he was driving it.
It's a cold business, folks.
Scotty Connell, is the main guy, though, that introduced Peter Puck. He was the one that coughed up the money to create the vignettes. He was the one that called Hanna-Barbera in Hollywood. I went there later with some information, offsides, icing, this is what the game's all about. I'd been writing some books about that. And they were quite happy to accept that and send it on to their working people, their animators. Scotty Connell, and I really loved working for this guy. It seems to me that he quickly told me, hey, that worked pretty well.
Okay, regardless of who originally came up with the idea, his popularity just skyrocketed. So much so that the animation made its way north of the border.
Keep watching Hockey Night in Canada, kids. See ya!
And it didn't stop there. Books, pins, t-shirts, candy, you name it, Peter Puck was everywhere. And that included in person. The Peter Puck costume let kids and hockey fans meet the famous character, and he became somewhat of a celebrity.
He practically needed a bodyguard. Like, one of us would have to beware of somebody pulling on his glove or yanking on his back of his costume, and all of those things were things we had to be concerned about. We had him in the Santa Claus parade for Eaton's, and they said he was, next to Santa, the most popular character in the parade. We had him at hockey tournaments. Eddie Shack came along one day and wrote his name in big magic marker on his back. Eddie Shack, a costume we'd paid hundreds of dollars for. And oh, Eddie, why would you do a thing like that?
Okay, by the time the cartoon was on Hockey Night in Canada, there were a few things that were just indisputable. Peter Puck was fun, Peter Puck was popular, but Peter Puck was also expensive. It cost around $200,000 per episode to produce, so McFarland had to figure out ways to cut costs.
I thought I'd have Peter skip across the screen for 15 seconds. Hi folks, I'm Peter Puck. Tonight I'm going to tell you the story of Bobby Baun scoring a broken leg goal. And then I could go to the film and film Bobby Baun in that playoff game, 1964. He scored on allegedly a broken leg. And then I could have Peter come back in, and this would be very inexpensive production. And he would say, well, there's the story of Bobby Baun. Next week we're going to talk about Darryl Sittler's 10-point night.
See ya, kids!
The cartoon got so big that it may have actually begun to influence the NHL. Dave Gardner was just unhappy with his playing time in Montreal and decided, like so many other hockey fans, to write a letter to Peter Puck. A letter that, legend has it, he read to his teammates on an airplane.
Dear Peter, how can I score goals when I'm always sitting on the bench for Scotty Bowman?
Days later, Gardner was shipped to St. Louis.
That letter to Peter Puck got noticed in Montreal, and they decided if he's going to be a smartass, they're going to trade him.
Now, as much joy as Peter Puck brought to not only hockey fans, but the McFarlands themselves, there were some downtimes. Bad business deals, people trying to steal and profit from the image, and more than one battle in court. And believe it or not, the original NBC tapes were buried in a storage room for decades and came this close to being destroyed, if not for a very thoughtful employee.
Out of the blue, a guy phones me from New York and says, I used to work with you on the NBC shows. And he said, I've discovered boxes of 35mm tapes here in this storage room, and they're all Peter Puck, the original tapes. That's where they were. What do you want me to do with them, Brian? I said, if you could send them to me, I would just love it. And at his own expense, or somebody's expense, 9 boxes of tapes arrived at my house in Willowdale, and I stored them in the bedroom. And those were the original Peter Puck tapes, and I didn't even remember this man, and I don't know his name to this day.
McFarland would eventually own the Canadian and then worldwide rights to Peter Puck, who would make a short comeback on CBC in 2009, where the cartoon focused less about the rules of the game and more about the players. Now that run lasted from 2009 to 2012, and most hockey fans thought that would be the last they would ever see of the lovable character.
See ya, kids!
Well, they were wrong. Peter Puck turns 50 in 2023, and he, along with his new friend Penny Puck, are making a comeback.
I'm so encouraged by these young people who have taken Peter Puck over, and they're going to do it right this time, I'm sure. My wife and I, Ma and Pa, what are we going to do with Peter Puck and make him big and successful without much resources? Try to hold down a couple of other jobs, raise 3 kids and all the rest of it, get them into college. No, this is going to take some expertise, and I think it's there now. I think the right people are guiding Peter's destiny. And I wouldn't be at all surprised because they're going to start in Canada, it will overflow into the US, and where it goes from there is anybody's guess. But why not Peter and Penny Puck to speak to hockey, and kids who love hockey, want to get engaged in the game, need some guidance, need some advice. You stress fair play, respect for parents, respect for coaches, respect for referees, be a team player, learn all those good things. And with Peter's supervision and Peter's involvement, why couldn't that happen worldwide?
Today, McFarland is no longer broadcasting hockey games, but at 91, he's still very much involved with the game. He's still writing hockey books, and he paints. In fact, he paints a new picture every single day. But if he truly is the father of Peter Puck, well, he's a proud dad. And if he could actually speak to the fictional character, what would he say?
I'd say, hello, son, you've been a busy guy all your life. It's so nice for you to sit down and let me get to know you a little bit more. Oh, you're not finished? You're gonna make a comeback? Oh my goodness, isn't that something? Good luck with that, pal.